Right. Welcome to the very last project that we'll be doing in Publisher. And this is a big one. So if you notice, this is going to be 13 pages by the time you're finished. You can see scrolling down through here. And then you're going to have an entire calendar for the year of not 2017, but for 2018. So we'll talk about the cover page another day. But starting with each of the different months, what we're going to do today is at least get the bottom part of our calendar set up and ready to go. So looking at the different months, you've got a lot of different things happening here. So we're going to resize so that we're only using the bottom portion of the calendar for the actual calendar itself. And we want to leave the top portion to actually put pictures, put color blocks, and put all sorts of different things. Now, in the classroom, there's actually an example of an older calendar. My one from 2012 is actually printed and on the desks in the classroom if you want to see one at your fingertips. But otherwise, we're going to walk through the newest one. So when I do the calendar, I like to add lots of different elements, and there are going to be some required elements. Again, we'll talk about that another day. For today, what we've got to do is get your calendar set up. So we want to take a look just to kind of give you some ideas at different calendars, different pages. Here I decided to do baby pictures of all my kids and frame them out with little doily hearts for February. Still adding in holidays and still able to see my font, so you can see I had to change my color. Adding birthdays, it's my husband's birthday right there, holidays, and all the necessary parts. March, I generally let each of my kids have 1 month. March is my daughter's birthday, so this one we had Ellie's birthday, pictures from her party from the previous year. My oldest son is a huge UNC fan, wonder where he gets that from. So we take pictures of his previous party and then customize everything based on his taste. And then my youngest guy, here he is being a sumo wrestler. At his party, we've got Plants vs. Zombies, some garden warfare, but we've got still all the important information, holidays, birthdays, everything included. So you can see there's going to be lots of different elements that you're going to add, lots of backgrounds, lots of color accents. Even here where we can use different types of shading, gradient shading, picture backgrounds to add everything in, we're going to learn how to do that. But step one, we've actually got to go through and see how to create our calendar. So starting with a new document, we're going to click new, but we are going to use a template, just like we did with our gift certificate for Caribou Coffee. Now we are going to look for a calendar. So we'll search for calendar, and then make sure you spell it right. AR there at the end is a little tricky. And we're going to get some results. Now, if you notice, there's some here, but nothing that looks like the ones that we had. And the reason is that that's a particular style inside of the publication. So I'm actually not going to use any of these. And instead, I'm going to hit back, or actually back to new, and I want to do just a blank document. I don't mess it up here. So we're going to do new and then just a blank 8.5 by 11. Now, obviously, this is not our whole calendar with one page. But from here, we can actually change our page design and then here change template. So if I click change template under page design, it always puts you in flyers by default. So I'm going to click back on home. And then I'm actually going to search for calendars. I can see it's actually got a shortcut here. So there we go. And then here are different styles. Now, I'm going to be very particular and ask you to do the same one that I'm going to show you, which we go all the way down to the one that says understated. Now, looking at it, bleh, it's not interesting. It's not got color or pictures. And the reason is because we're going to add that in. But if you use any of these designs, like this one here for travel, if I change this color on 1 month, it changes on all of them. So if you use a template that has design elements like color, it'll actually mess it up when you want to customize it for each month. So we're picking the most basic, most plain, the one that's called understated. Once I click that, I can see my options are going to pop up over here. Couple things we got to change. So the first one is going to be, we don't want landscape. We're actually going to change this to have it as portrait. So portrait is our first change. And we are doing 1 month per page, but it's not just for 1 month. So we'll do set calendar dates, and we're going to change this to show January of 2018 all the way to December of 2018. When we click OK, it's going to take us back, and again, just verify. Also make sure it still says portrait. Sometimes when we click that, it changes back to landscape, so then we have to adjust it one more time. If everything looks good, we click OK, It says, do we want to create or apply to the current? It doesn't matter. This is going to create a new one. I don't want this old blank document, so I'm just going to say to the current one. And then it's going to create it. So then we have one, and I can scroll down all the way down to December. So if you're interested when Christmas is next year, it's going to be on Tuesday. But this way we've got all of our dates covered. And what's pretty awesome is we don't have to insert a table and go adding all those different pieces. Now that's step one, getting the understated style. So next thing we're going to do is we're going to adjust our margins to have a little bit more printable area. So we're going to adjust our margins down to narrow, or 1/4 of an inch all the way around. You can see that move that blue dotted line from behind the table. And if I click on the other months, it's already updated on those too. So I don't have to worry about going back and forth. Now for the next part, we're going to take this table, and I'm just going to click in it to select it, and we're going to resize. Now you've got to be really careful where you click. So if I want to resize the table, you can see I move the mouse where it has the arrows pointed in a diagonal direction to the upper left and to the lower right. So if I click that, that's going to let me actually resize and move around. Now, as we're moving, I know I'm kind of making it look funky here, but watch this, and up here. That's our horizontal and vertical rules. So if we're trying to figure out like how big or small to make this, we're going to use those to help us, especially the vertical one, because we want to take this table only up about half of our page. So I'm going to decrease it. Now that went down to, I'm going to get it right up to the number 6, and then stretch out the bottom to my margin just to get it margin to margin, because that will still print as long as it's inside or on top of your margins. If you go much outside of that, it might not print. One thing that doesn't look so good is this row got squished. So I can drag this part down, but it is going to mess up the bottom. So instead I'm going to click, and you can see the 2 double lines on top of each other. If I move the mouse to where I have that, that's what's going to let me adjust these individual lines. So if we needed to make this one taller than the rest, then we just go down to that line. It makes it look more professional if everything is the same size. So the closer you can get it to the same size, the better it will be. Now the last thing we're going to do is we're actually going to take this text box. I'm going to hit delete on my keyboard, or you can right click and cut, or delete object, same thing, delete text. But we're going to delete this because number one, we don't need to remind people of what year they're in, but then 2, this is just plain text, and instead we're going to insert word art for our title. So delete. Now that puts us done with 1 month. So January is completely set up, or at least set up and ready for us to add stuff. So to set up our calendar and get it completely set, we're going to do the same thing for the other months. Delete, click my table. I'm going to resize, and again, keep it professional. So I'm trying to get it all the way down to 6 so that it's almost identical to the one we had before. Also remember when you're resizing here, don't stretch from the middle boxes. So if we're trying to resize our table, don't go here, because if you go here, it's going to end up causing problems. Make sure everything fits, then move on to the next month. So you're going to do the same thing for all 12 months. Resize your table to get it down to, now I've just chosen 6, but that's also because I want to make sure that I have plenty of room for my pictures. But if I were being technical and I wanted it to be exactly half the page, then I would actually only go right here. I would go to the 5.5 mark, because our page is from 0 to 11, and then halfway would be 5.5. But for me, I like that extra little space for pictures, so I'm going to keep that. So continue, keep setting up your calendar, and then come back for our next class once everything's set up. And in the next page that says days 2 through 6, you'll learn how to take this boring blank document and spice it up and make it look better.